Hi everyone, thanks for watching. You can support our work on our website ageoftruth.tv. And please like our videos, subscribe to our channels on YouTube, BitChute and Brighteon. And remember to hit the bell for notifications. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook. To be sure not to miss any of our shows, you can sign up for our newsletter on our website ageoftruth.tv.
Logan, nice to meet you. Finally, I've only seen you in, on videos and heard about you, but now nice to meet you in person.
Now it's face to face, almost. Yeah,
Face to face,
exactly.
yeah.
Well, great. You know what? I'm just gonna turn the camera on for the studio so you can see Lucas, who's gonna do the interview with you. Okay. It's through.
Hi, how are you?
Oh my goodness, you're so crispy clear there and gorgeous as ever.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful. Flattery will get you everywhere, and so nice to see.
I actually put the black thing on. I haven't had anything black on in years because you always do the vampire thing. I was like, I'm gonna be the shiny vampire too a little bit.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great, Isabella. Now we can match a little bit, huh?
Yeah, I love that background too. That's, wow, very nice.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, how have you been? It's nice to see you again.
Wonderful to see you too, and I love being in touch with you. I've been, oh my God, since we had our previous interview, my awareness has expanded significantly, and I watched our previous interview yesterday. I was like, whoa, I know so much more by now.
Once you open up to a certain source or information flow and you go in a certain direction, as you know, then so much information is coming and you just become wiser and wiser. But I'm glad to know this because then you have a lot to share with us today.
I do, and there are things that I hear very few people talk about that I want to address.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Copenhagen, Denmark. And our special guest today is a fascinating European lady who has lived in America for many years. She has now become an expert on the topic of the reincarnation, death, soul trap. And she was on the show to promote her book, Leaving the Trap. And now she is back with a new book, a fascinating book entitled Beyond the Trap. And there are so many more new fascinating things to discuss today with Isabella A.GREENE. Good evening from Copenhagen, Denmark, and welcome to our viewers on Age of Truth TV. Please like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications. We have yet another fascinating show for you today with a guest that's been with us before. We did a wonderful and really in-depth interview, and she's joining us today to promote her latest book called Beyond the Trap, that I have right here. And it's so fascinating. Her first book was Leaving the Trap, and we were, of course, talking about the reincarnation death soul trap. And there is so much more she's here to share with us today. So we're going to go to Arizona, to Sedona, and welcome on the show once more, Isabella A.GREENE. Hi, Isabella. It's so nice to have you on again.
Hi, Lucas. I am thrilled to be on your podcast one more time.
Great. And you've just published this new book, and thank you so much. I've got it here. It's very easy to read, but there's so much information in there, and it's like such an interesting book for people that really want to go in depth into what this whole problem of the entrapment of this karma wheel soul factory that maybe we call heaven and the false white light. We discussed so much on that previous show that people can watch as well. But I mean, this book, Beyond the Trap, why did you write this book?
I wrote this book pretty much wrote itself because after I published the first book, I received so much feedback and so many questions and so much interest and support in this subject that as I proceeded to answer these questions, and the questions were repeating, and people wanted to know the same kind of information. As I was responding to people in my group, I have Exiting Reincarnation group on Facebook, and as I was responding to people, I realized that, wow, I should publish this because it literally the book wrote itself, but also because I really focused on this subject and I realized that this is now the focus of my work. New information started coming in, new awareness started coming in that I felt that I needed to share. And also I felt that I needed to give guidance to those who are following me because I opened an online school where I now teach how to exit reincarnation cycle. And the school is thevoidacademy.net. The void, we're going into the void, right? So it's the Void Academy. And one chapter in this book is dedicated to practices and side effects and what to expect, and so that people could have something in writing that would assist their journey once they start practicing and training for their final exit. I posit we have to train for a final exit. So the book was sharing my new perspective. There's a lot that I learned and I changed or built upon the previous book and said, okay, I thought this, but now I know this. And it's my own journey of awareness growing. And you can follow that in the second book. And the third book is writing itself already in the same exact manner because more and more is coming in.
That's fascinating. And in this book, it's like a compilation of your own download, so to speak, your connection to source, to wherever you're
Yeah.
getting your information as a kind of channeler, where you are experiencing this wherever it is inside of yourself or outside or wherever you can go into that so people can really understand where does she get her information from. And also it's a compilation also and things you are pointing out that other people, other experts have been talking about and have been sharing for a while as well. And you're very gracious in giving, let's say,
Credit.
compliments and talking about, just mentioning people and experts on this topic as well, which is very good, I think.
Yeah, because when I wrote the first book, I didn't even know that anyone spoke about this aside from myself. I thought that I discovered the whole subject and the whole thing and the whole mindset, and I just wrote and I put that into my book, humbly thinking that this was just going to fall through the cracks. As a matter of fact, I didn't think anything at all. I was just like, this is what I know and this needs to come out. And since I published the book, people started telling me, oh, wow, David Icke talked about this. And by the way, David Icke included me in his recent book, included my experiences and my conclusions in his recent book, The Reveal, saying that he came up with the same conclusions through a different modality or through a different way of finding this kind of information. That's such an incredible come this is such an incredible validation for my work. And so people, audience, listeners, viewers, readers started writing to me saying, oh, this guy talked about it, this guy talked about it. And so and you and I had an interview, and you pointed me to Linda Moulton Howe's work with the regarding extraterrestrials and our whole system and how it ties into the matrix here. So all of that information started coming in, and of course I had to mention the sources that talk about the archonic structure, like Paul Wallace, the presence of the non-terrestrials in our reincarnation cycle, and that's Linda Moulton Howe, and then David Icke, and even the confirmation of the number of dimensions within the matrix structure, which Darius Wright talks about, but except that he doesn't call it that way. He just talks about astral projecting into 12 dimensions. But the fact that these are 12 dimensions of entrapment, that is not a part of his presentation. But he confirmed, because he's also a astral traveler, and so he talked in depth about 12 different dimensions and what kind of beings you find there. I see that that's the structure of entrapment. He doesn't present it this way, he doesn't see it this way, but I still see that it's a confirmation of the layers and levels of this whole astral structure that has to do with our entrapment system here on this planet.
Yes, that's amazing. And also, we've been talking about it on Age of Truth TV for many years, actually. I think it was one of the first channels that really talked about it a lot, because I was part of a group where we were studying this a lot. And I had David Icke on in 2018 where we focused on this topic. And also, as you said, Linda Moulton Howe, a lot of these other people that has a very significant point of view on what this death trap is. But it's wonderful that somebody comes along now, like you, to really focus on this particular topic right now, because it is so important. And I feel it's one of the most important topics, actually, because one thing is to find out how we are going to live and coexist with whatever is going on this planet. But if we are entrapped when we leave the planet, when our souls leave the body, then we have to find out how to do it. And this is what you are talking about. And actually, I want to start out with reading a little excerpt from your book here, where you say, "The soul entrapment system was created by the new handlers of Earth after they fought in space for the ownership of this territory and won. They implemented the third stage of human history, installed the matrix system and the reincarnation cycle. These handlers are running this planet to this day."
Yeah.
Isabella, really? Wow. Please explain to the audience what this means and what this is all about. This sounds wild.
All right. So I got the information through me accessing the quantum field of information. And of course, I always, in my meditations and my nighttime practices, if I have a question, I can go deep into that fabric of knowledge, become it, and come back. And if my left brain didn't filter it out, then on a good day, on a good night, actually, I have the answer. So this is how I got the answer. But I started, of course, I always want to double check if there are other resources that talk about the same thing. And as I started looking for confirmation, I found a few confirmations of the same. First, in Barbara Marciniak's book, Earth, where she channeled non-terrestrial consciousness, the Pleiadians, and It literally says the same thing, that there were wars in space for ownership of this territory, which is Earth, and that a faction that is currently still present on Earth is the group that won that war. I was like, whoa, I just got that, and here is her channeling the same information. We have now a lot of programs about the pre-Diluvian civilizations that existed before the big flood, before the Anunnaki came in and took over the planet. And so if we start putting this thread together, we'll see that stories, although in different language and different kind of presentation, but they are consistent. And even Paul Wallace, whose work I admire, he's an incredible scholar, such an incredible contribution to our minds.
And he's now become a very good friend. He's very thorough, very wonderful, very intelligent, and very great. So people can also watch those shows. You're absolutely right on the mark.
Yeah, and so he, in his book Escaping from Eden, he talks about the whole creation of the human race, a recent creation, because it's in the Old Testament. It's in the Old Testament, which means it's just this tiny part of history. What happened before that, right? We apparently had two other cycles of human history, but in that recent cycle that is described in the New Testament, we have the beings who are in plain sight in the Old Testament, according to Paul Wallace, and they created the human being, and the human being turned out to be too much like them. They created it in their likeness, but then they decided that we don't want that that being to be too aware or too tapped in or have the same abilities as us. So we're going to dim their abilities, dim their light, or make their eyes blind, or something. I don't know exact language from the Old Testament, but the book, Paul Wallace's book, gives the exact quotes there. So the human race, there's a creation of the human race in the Old Testament, and then the alteration of the DNA and our abilities. And so we are currently in the body vehicles that have been altered. We have so-called junk DNA that carries the actual, that junk carries abilities that are similar, the same to our creators. And these are the same beings that created the entire structure because they needed the human race for their own sustenance, to receive energy from the human suffering, to receive what Robert Monroe called loosh. And I was also told by my readers that there are other sources that talk about the production of loosh and why the human race basically was created as the donors of energy for the handlers. And there's only a handful of handlers. There are not that many, but the main guy or the person who had, or the being who had this idea, according to Paul Wallace, is Yahweh, and he is in the Old Testament. And David Icke talks about Yaldabaoth being the same, and that same name and the same concept and the same idea of creation of the physical and non-physical as one structure is in the Gnostic texts also that were found in 1945, the Nag Hammadi texts in Egypt. So I got a download of this information, and then I started checking and researching, and I found so much support that I felt comfortable enough to put that in my book and say, this is what happened.
And as you say, Yahweh and Yaldabaoth and whatever could be the same entities, just as some angels and demons and whatever. And I have a question about that also. But you've also said that we are in the final cycle, the cycle of human history right now. I don't know if that meant as souls in a body vehicle, final cycles. What does that really mean? Are you are you sure about that? Please explain how did you come up with that conclusion? What does it
I
mean to
did
be the
not
final cycle?
No, no, I didn't. I did not say that we were in the final cycle. I don't know if this is a final cycle or not. I know it's the third cycle, the most recent, and that started around the time when whatever is depicted in the Old Testament after the Great Flood. But I have no idea whether it's the final cycle or not. It appears to be, if we look at it, it appears to be that more and more people are waking up to the idea that they're entrapped and they want to get out. And it could very well prove to be the time when a lot of entrapped souls depart because they found out that the whole system of belief that we're here to learn lessons, to experience what we're not, or to grow and evolve as a soul, that all of that is a part of the agenda, a part of the brainwashing that happens in the afterlife dimension. And people bring that here. And what we hear in regressions, that's what people talk about. They remember that time, they remember being brainwashed into these beliefs, and then they talk about it when they regress, but they don't remember anything prior to that. So there is this going on. It might very well be that we are, as a species, awakening to the fact that we don't have to be recycled, and we don't have to feed the handlers, and we don't have to repeat suffering life after life, and then we can just check out and get out of here. And so I am observing that powers that hopefully were are actively trying to prevent this message from being from spreading, from people accessing it. Like, I know that I was on a really big channel recently, and they have hundreds of thousands of views, and every video before and after me had hundreds of thousands of views, even people who are not published, and I had 20,000. And the person looked, the owner of that channel looked and said, "You're being shadow banned. You are not the message that they want out there." And I've observed so much interference of all kinds of like weirdness happening when the interviews are set, or when I'm about to teach or present. And I'm pretty sure that there is strong resistance to allowing this message to come out, because the forces running the show on this planet still, they became aware that people are waking up into a possibility to get out of their system. And they're not in support of that. But those who promote their system, those who talk about them as benevolent beings, those who talk about as the afterlife and the reincarnation cycle as the great thing, and the astral plane being this heavenly, incredible place that you want to go to, their messages and their videos are promoted and pushed on different channels. So this is an indication that the powers are concerned.
Well, it's
If they
always
would,
interesting to see who is more shadow banned and targeted than others, and it's an indication, but it's also sometimes a very strange thing, because there are certain things that are allowed and certain things that are not allowed, and certain speakers as well. And in one way or the other, we're all facing it more or less.
yeah,
Who's been doing this work for a long time. But
absolutely.
when I was mentioning to you before that I said you had said that we were in the final cycle of human history right now. It was because I was checking one of your more recent interviews where you said something like that, and that was why I thought it was so interesting to ask you. Maybe it came out in a different way, but I thought if this is what you feel or what you mean, a final cycle is not necessarily 2 years, right? It could be
Yeah.
like a long cycle, but it's just that if we have seen this great reset, so to speak, many times or several times
Yeah.
happening when evolution has come to its, well, it's like hit the ceiling almost, and it's like
Yeah.
too much, and they want to do this great reset. But it's also a thing on Earth in a way, isn't it? It's also a code. That's what a lot of people are talking about, saying we can only go so far. But what are your thoughts on that when we just go back to this question, whether or not it's the final cycle or not, that this great reset is happening? So it's the Illuminati, the bad forces behind the construct of the political system and everything we have here on Earth. But is it also something else beyond source, creator, or the sophisticated AI superbrain computer or something? What are your thoughts on this?
I think that there is a grain of truth to this for sure. Is that even the ancient texts, if we take the yogic texts, they talk about cycles, 26,000 years cycles, and we're approaching that as a species. And then also, it's quite possible that the system, the matrix system, if the handlers notice that they can no longer control the population, or they can no longer sustain their matrix system, or that the humans became too aware, or the humans are checking out, going elsewhere, I don't see why, I don't see any challenge in their minds to just hit the reset button and wipe everything and start from scratch, because sustaining their well-being is the number one preference. How that would reflect on all of the souls that are currently here, that I can only envision as, for those who are awake and aware, if we have a full reset of the system, we might have what as the new age calls the ascension, mass ascension, right? So those who are in the higher octave of frequency already, and in the higher level of consciousness, the higher level of awareness, might be able to dissolve back into the fabric of reality and just not be trapped in the next structure that will be created. And those who are fully anchored in the physical, just as physical as it gets, they will probably continue in the next cycle. But I'm just speculating right here. This is just coming right through as you saying that. There are a lot of people talking about the event and the solar flares, and that we are at the end of a certain history. It could be that. It could be that the whole system will get reset, or it could be that we're truly at the end of history as we knew it before, because of all what's happening here on the planet, and we will all be cyborged pretty soon. Uh, well, I would definitely resist that, but who knows? It could be that the old will be moved out, the old organic human will be moved out of reality, and the non-organic cyborg type would be replacing it. So I think we'll have to live and see what happens.
Exactly. And you talked about those who are not aware. Don't you think that maybe it's okay to reincarnate again and get back into this 3D reality on Earth through the soul trap? Because if these people leave this time around and die unaware and haven't had access to the key to the portal of some kind of enlightenment in this life, perhaps they need to return to educate themselves through new lifetimes before understanding that they can actually choose to leave and choose to go to source or wherever.
Well, that's something they will certainly be told in the afterlife, that's for sure. But the ones who are not aware, there's a huge percentage of population that are not aware that reincarnation even exists. So let's say they passed away and they come out, and there's a huge part of our population does not believe in anything after death also. So let's take these two groups of people. Let's say they come out of the body and there is something going on, and because they have no idea what it is, it will be disorienting, and also it will feel so much lighter, and it will feel like a liberation from this whole heavy earth experience, that of course they're going to embrace it and believe whatever they're being told. And if they're being told that they need to go back and do this again to learn something new, even if the afterlife dimension tells them that they will learn to return to source and exit the system in the next lifetime, they're not going to remember that because they're wiped. But I don't think, if we consider all of the regressions, so many books are written based on regressions. So many channelers and different types of programs give us information based on regressions, right? So many people talk about their clients who are talking about this whole system through regressions. Like the common story, I came to Earth to learn, I came to Earth to have a purpose, I came to Earth to, I don't know, reconnect with my soul group. These very similar stories always, they all have no idea that that is a hoax. They all talk about this genuinely believing that this is what happens and this is what is supposed to be. And because it's in regression, then it's supposed to be some sort of validated information. But as far as I have been paying attention and noticing, what happens is people go in regressions. They remember that previous chapter where they were brainwashed to believe that they need to go back and do it again. But no one is telling them that this is an entrapment system.
Or they
So,
could be channeling, well, disinformers, maybe the same disinformers that they met at the point of death, at the tunnel of light, presenting
yeah,
themselves as the God they believe in, or
yeah.
Jesus, Mohammed, Buddha, whatever, or their beloved grandmother looking her best.
Yes, yeah, for sure, for sure. So to answer your question about when people who are not aware of what's going on face this kind of scenario, of course they're going to believe it because there's no awareness anywhere that a different scenario exists or is possible. And because they are influenced through the methods that open their hearts, make them feel so loved, make them feel so cared for, and it's all for your own benefit and it's all for your own good. And if you go back to Earth School, you will graduate and be like us after a million incarnations. And they look up to these beings there. And we were trained to, those who are in religious traditions, we were trained to worship these beings and look up to them. So, of course, the majority of the population would buy this.
Those beings
Sure.
are demonic disinformers or what? Not truthful, not real, not their deities, not their gods or whatever they believe in. That's a lie, you say.
Yes, absolutely. It is absolutely a lie. And there is a belief now that these are not even real beings. These are just the projections of non-terrestrial AI systems that is now called a simulation, right? That we have a simulation running on this planet. And each individual person has a database within that simulation. I don't know how that works. David Icke explains that as plasma technology. And there was a Polish scientist who discovered clouds around Earth plane, plasma clouds that contain information. And so they're called the Kundalini clouds. And every person has a database on them from the moment of their existence as a human being, especially throughout this life. That's where the life review comes from. And so it could very well be that these beings are the AI projection of what they believe in, because the system runs itself. The system has the database on you, knows your beliefs, knows what you're ready and not ready for, and it's going to present something to you that you're going to be most susceptible in receiving and following. And because we're conditioned to follow these beings or presentations without question, that was from the very beginning. We were supposed to follow without question. Even Yahweh demanded 100% loyalty without question. That's God's will. You got to do God's will no matter what. So we're still conditioned in that. We're still conditioned to look up to these beings. And if they're saying something, we believe wholeheartedly that it's for our own higher good. And so the person who did not do their homework while still alive, who did not prepare while still alive, is very susceptible to buying the whole thing and continuing to be recycled. And a lot of people love it. A lot of people love the experience on Earth. A lot of people write to me saying, "Oh, I love the whole spectrum of emotions. I love my pain, and I love my joy, and I love the tears and the good times, and I love my heartbreaks. And I love, hey, if you love that, good for you. You're staying. You're supplying the energy to the losers. You're the one they want, and just remain and enjoy. If you're enjoying it, that is perfectly fine, and that is a choice too."
But a lot of people say, and this is also sort of logic, if we're not physical when we leave the body, then it's soul consciousness or the soul being or spirit or different versions of that. So maybe the only way we can experience sensation is to go into a body, inhabit a body, a vehicle, in order to feel all of these sensations, the five senses. We're not talking about all those senses beyond the five senses, but so that we physically can feel, we can be close to another person or people in general, love and pain, sexuality, and also all of these other things. Of course, pain is dualism, isn't it? The yin and yang, darkness, the light, black and white, all of this, we can only experience it when we are in a body. So isn't that in a way a good thing? And do you think or not that this whole idea of the soul evolving or our consciousness evolving, because some of us, we already know about all of these things and have been talking about them for years and years. And it's like we're living in a different world from the rest of the population. But then there are
Yeah.
all the other people. They don't have the key to unlock the portal, the gates to that realm. It's not that they're worse or unintelligent. Some are really intelligent in terms of their work and education, whatever, on this planet. But I mean, it's like they don't have access to even comprehend or wanting to believe that there is something beyond this realm. So, I mean, do you think that at some point these people could actually, let's say, wake up or understand that there is something different or greater than just this, and then suddenly have access to that portal through different lifetimes.
Okay, so there are three things here, and please remind me if I lose one of them while I'm talking about the other. So first of all, as the physical sensations and emotions, yes, they are the most available through the physical body. When you are in body, the body is equipped with that. So you're right about that. A lot of non-terrestrial beings talk about, in channels I hear, talk about wanting to come to Earth to have this kind of experience, the whole emotionality, because they don't have that in their states of being in their body. So at least that's what's being promoted and channeled nowadays. This is true. But when you pass away and you go into a part of the astral dimension where the afterlife and the pre-birth exist, you still have access to emotions and the love and the feelings, predominantly positive. As a matter of fact, all positive. It's all positive. So you experience yourself as a non-physical soul without awareness that there is something outside of that system, but you're still linked to the memories of experiences on Earth. And children that are coming in nowadays talk about remembering the pre-birth dimension. So it's like you go into afterlife, you get your life review, and then they put you into pre-birth. And pre-birth is where you are preparing to go back to Earth. And a lot of children nowadays come in with these memories, and they say that they only thought, like in that pre-birth dimension, they were free, they were playing all the time, they were happy, and the suffering was not there at all. It was only shown to them, to some of them, and to some it wasn't shown at all, as a part of the kind of like on screen, like, here, watch this movie, you might suffer when you go to Earth. And so some children talk about remembering this, and some children talk about not being shown or not being told about suffering at all. So they do have access to emotions and joy and all positive state in the afterlife and pre-birth dimension without the physical body, because they're still very much linked to the human physical experience, you see. So it doesn't require to have the body to have the positive feelings. This is the first two parts of this. And then these children come into Earth, and they sometimes pursue their parents. And I'm talking about, there was a podcast on Jeff Mara channel, and there was a woman talking about her son, how he followed her, how he wanted to come in through them as parents, how he was saying he wanted to come in for a purpose. And he was the one telling her that it was just joy and fun, and they can fly, and they had so much great time in the previous pre-birth dimension. And then when they ended up on Earth, then they found out the hard way that there was not that at all. But that was not in the small print. They were not prepared, and they were not told that they were going to experience so much density, so much heaviness, so much rejection, so much pain. That was not listed. One of the people commented there that her daughter was remembering also, and said that it felt like in the pre-birth she was promised like a luxurious resort on Earth, but when she arrived, it was like a roach motel full of terrible stuff. So that was a child's there was a child's metaphor to her experience, the child who retained the memories of the pre-birth. So these two are not, you don't necessarily need to have a physical experience to have the positive feelings. And when you go into the non-physical realms, you only experience positive feelings. And they might tell you that you need to go to Earth to experience negative feelings because you did something. And that's how the whole karma works. So these are the two aspects out of three that you mentioned. And then you asked if people would wake up. Surprisingly, I remember the third part after talking for so long here.
It's
But you
amazing.
asked,
I'm amazed.
me too, me too. So you asked if people would wake up, and people wake up at their own pace, at their own timing, within their own timing, and very much depends on the environment, and it very much depends on what's happening around them. Because when you were talking about these things, which I'm sure you know better even than me or anyone on your channel because of how much information you've gathered so far. When you were talking about this, I don't know, in the 90s, there were not that many people who were on the same page with you. But if you now talk about the same thing, there are thousands and thousands of people who are on the same page as you. So we have progressed in group consciousness on Earth. And so this ripples out. People start hearing something, their neighbors talk about it, their friends talk about it. Oh, I just heard that on the internet. Oh, that's nonsense. Was it really? Let me check. And so, oh, another person talked about it, another person talked about it. And so that becomes a norm, or more or less becomes something that when the idea is circulating, people start catching up, it becomes more acceptable, and then people start waking up. So we're in a very different space, even with the majority of the population being dense as a doorknob, we're still in the space where we are awakening faster than ever before. So yeah, people might wake up into alternative concepts and alternative knowledge. Good for them.
But do you believe in evolution, the evolution of consciousness and the soul, though? Because a lot of people will die and go to the trap unaware of their free will or ability or possibility to break free from this system and to even understand that there is this karma wheel soul trap system. But don't you
Yeah.
think or that they need to go back into a new body to have a new experience in order to get to that point of understanding
No.
this?
No, all they need to do is get out of the whole structure and they will know
But if they
instantly
don't
that
know how to do that, if they don't know how to access that or don't have access to this
yeah.
material, this information, or maybe they won't believe it. They don't believe it. They think it's just a stupid New Age conspiracy theory.
So then they are in for another ride and another ride and another ride because it's basic, everything is based on the person's beliefs. And so as long as the person is holding on to beliefs that are fed into our soul memory, and that's something that we do remember very often. Surprisingly enough, right? We forget everything else, but we do remember that we came to Earth because we need to evolve, right? And that is the bogus idea. That is absolutely, this idea has been created to maintain the system. The soul contains everything. Get that part of your soul out of the dimensions of the matrix, and you will instantly be as evolved as it gets. That's
But then
it.
how come that there are some people that are aware of these things and have the ability to research and go into enlightenment, to download things, if you will, or to channel or be clairvoyance and all of this, or to really be open to everything alternative? and some people, and then there's so many people who are not open to this. I mean, are we on so many different levels of understanding, on different soul levels, on different almost timelines here while we coexist in human form?
I see that. I think you are kind of pointing to the belief that after you've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Earth experiences, then eventually you wake up. And I know that that is a belief. I know that this seems to be happening to me because I came in before the dinosaurs. I remember that. And I've been on Earth ever since. Okay.
Well,
And the
if the
dinosaurs,
dinosaur story is even real,
or it was an experiment, as we heard
or a
Linda
parallel
talk about
dimension,
that.
even, some people say that the dinosaurs were here in a different timeline and then they took over because human beings could not coexist with dinosaurs.
Or I did not see the dinosaurs when I came in, so maybe they were
Maybe
on
they
a
were
different.
reptilian aliens, Isabella. Have you thought of that?
Yeah, probably that's possible. But the fact is that when I came in, these beings did not exist, okay, on Earth. So that, and so I have been on Earth. If we take, I think, what is it, 70 billion years, let's say, that they're saying the dinosaurs. So somehow in my awareness, I was like, I've been here since before the dinosaurs, whether they happen or not. But so let's say, take that timeline. So I have been here for a while, and I remember that I
I
came
must say
in
you
because.
look great.
Thanks. That's all that fresh air in Arizona. Um, Thanks. So, so if if we take the theory that it took 70 billion years for me of being recycled on Earth to finally arrive at the conclusion that I don't have to keep doing this, then that's quite a stretch of time, and everyone is in for a while, right? But it could also be that because we have people waking up into these concepts or doing their research and digging and talking about these things and doing research of the Old Testament and questioning things, doing research like David Icke is doing and questioning things and putting that information out there, then the consciousness starts to adjust. And maybe that consciousness, without even me being aware of it, hit me at some point, and whoa, that triggered something and realizations and awareness. So I do not believe that you need 70 billion years on Earth to evolve from knowing something back to knowing the same thing. All
So
right.
let's suppose you've been here for 70 billion years. That's a lot. Then, I mean, then it's now that you're finally understanding about the soul trap. And now you're lecturing about it. You're writing books about it. You know about these things. You're doing this meditation that we will get into, that you're advising people or teaching people how to do. But I mean, so it took you quite a while to understand how to get out of it, huh? Or did you understand it before and was actually hijacked by these archon beings or whatever, and then had another wiped memory experience and back into a new body and a new cycle here?
Yeah.
Or what do you think?
That's what I think exactly. Because it makes no sense. If I came in knowing something and then it took 70 billion years for me to know it again, that makes no
It's a
sense
long
whatsoever,
time. Yeah.
right? Or people who are in the afterlife dimension being told that they're here on earth to learn how to love, but in the afterlife dimension, all they experience is love. They feel so loved and they feel so loving and they feel this unconditional love for everything. And then they're being sent to earth because on earth we're told that we're here to learn how to love. That makes no sense whatsoever.
But
Because
don't you think
why do
there's
you,
some truth to that, Isabella? That we are here to learn to love. Isn't that what we actually should do while we are here? Isn't that the only thing
well,
that matters?
it's true. This is the only thing that matters, but it does not support the evolution of the soul whatsoever because the soul already knows this. So you're going from the place where you are love and you know unconditional love. You get wiped and you're in physicality on earth trying to recall what it is to be your natural self. So why? You see what I'm saying? I'm saying that this is not nonsensical process. Why do you need to go on earth and struggle and suffer and trial and error and all kinds of things to find out what your soul innately knows already? Okay. And it doesn't take you any higher because when you're in the afterlife dimension, even in the afterlife dimension, you experience this state of incredible unconditional love. And then on earth, we come from that state back into zero and then try to spend our lifetime to experience unconditional love again. So the whole structure, the whole system does not make any sense to me whatsoever.
Well, don't you think it's a wonderful thing to feel sensation and to feel that physicality? And for example, as I mentioned earlier, that closeness between two people and seeing your children
I,
grow up.
I agree. I agree that it's a wonderful thing on earth, and I think that this is one of the strongest motivation and pretty much the only thing that people enjoy truly and are motivated by to go back to earth or to be on earth or to do on earth. But at the same time, that also propagates the continuation of the species. That also fully supports the production of more humans on Earth. So it's a very beautiful state of being, and that's what everyone talks about. Even people on deathbeds, they say, "What do you remember the most?" I remember the most how I loved or how I was loved or experiencing love, right? So that's this big carrot, this big thing to for as a positive thing for being on Earth. At the same time, it assures that we continue reproducing, also continue making more population in heterosexual population.
Talk about the archons versus the reptilian alien race that you've talked about also. Describe these beings. You claim that they are behind the death soul trap and that they enslaved us for harvesting and loosh. You say that they fought for this planet. They took over and created the matrix trap structure, but can that even be done? And are they that powerful? And who did they fight in order to claim sovereignty or to entrap this planet?
These are some questions I have not pondered, so I need to tune into this big time in my meditations. But here's what I can say: I don't know for sure that these beings are reptilian. David Icke talks about the reptilians running the show. We have many, many different channels talking about the reptilians running the show. What I have seen the three factions of non-terrestrials that Linda Martin Howe was talking about on your channel. I have seen the Nordic Pleiadians that present themselves, they look very angelic and present themselves as this Scandinavian type looking beings. But then again, this could be a projection, right? This could be a facade they give us, and this could be a reptilian being behind it. There are reptilians in the Pleiadian reality, for sure. We have Mantian beings as an insectoids, and they're very involved with the human race, and that's a very common knowledge. A lot of people interact with them, channel them, or experience abductions through them or with them, and different type of body adjustments and implants through the riptoids, and I'm sorry, through the insectoids. And then we have the gray type of beings, Zeta Reticuli, or the type of typical alien being. In my visions, they were blue colored. So these are the ones that I saw present at the time when people were passing. But I have never seen a physical or like even the silhouette of a reptilian being. So I think that reptilian beings are aware that they're too scary for the human eye, human mind, and so they cloak. Either they cloak, or it's a projection through the AI technology to. The projection is of the type of physicality that the human mind can handle.
Well, it's probably not going to be like a picnic to witness an insectoid. You think?
Right.
I mean, they've also been known to be very scary, according to people who've been abducted and have seen those as well. Some even say that those insectoids are even more vicious than these reptilians, and that some of them are working together. But I mean, so. Reptilians a lot of people say, not just David Icke, that they are behind the
Yeah.
governments and the
Yeah.
Illuminati bloodlines controlling this earth and this realm, and that they have this other dimension, this off-planet dimension, and that they have been on this planet for eons, probably, maybe even
Right.
before us. But so the karma wheel soul trap, the reincarnation trap, is not done, according to you, by the reptilians, but the archons. Some people say that the archons can project themselves to look like a reptilian. So, because the archons are not physical, they're interdimensionals. And those are demons and jinns.
And reptilians. I think that we are running in circles, chasing our own tail, trying to figure out what species that is. And it could be just the same one species, and we call them reptilians, we call them archons, we call them Anunnaki, we call them angels, and we call them gods. And they are visible to those who have eyes to see, and invisible to the most, and to the majority of the population, they are a projection. So that's and I had a vision recently that I put in my book, that they were invisible, and within the sixth dimension, they would vibrate into a projected form, and within the fifth dimension, where the afterlife was, or a part of that area anyway, they would be in form. But then as they go back into like the sixth and seventh and the previous one, they just go back into being static, just energy. So this tells us that these are most likely projections. And who is behind these projections? Well, if we take Paul Wallace's work, he was talking about Yahweh being a dragon, being a reptilian type of being. We have I can't pronounce it. Quetzalcoatl is the god of the South America, right? In South America, they worship the reptilian god, or the serpent god. I think I can. You will recognize. Please correct me. The Quetzalcoatl or something that it's called.
But I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, and other, and then in Asia the dragon being worshipped, and it's always looks like a snake-like being with the head, and in South America there are depictions of that everywhere around their temples, and Paul Wallace talks about Yahweh being a dragon type of being,
There is something
that
called
is
the Chitahuri. Is that the one you were talking about?
that
Chitahuri?
I'm not familiar with, but
Right.
apparently it's the same being. It's the same being perceived by different cultures, depicted by different cultures, but behind it, behind these presentations is the same type of being, which points to it being a type of a reptilian, long like a snake with little legs, and something that needs to eat like hundreds of cows, because they were doing these sacrifices, cows and people and blood and all kinds of stuff. And what kind of God eats that? And what kind of God needs that to be appeased? So that tells us that behind the whole system we have a reptilian presence, but it does not show itself in that way. It shows itself in a way that we are most susceptible to, open to, and believe.
Some people obviously see them and experience them at satanic rituals, and a lot of these mind control slaves and people that have been part of these secret societies, they've come out and talked about it. But I mean, talk about this is so interesting. So the concept of, let's say, angels, demons. You talked about angels and demons, archons, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, God, the
Yeah.
concept of God, the religious hierarchies. A hierarchy in itself is that alone is also a concept on earth. But all of these things, please explain all of that. Could all of that be the same? The same thing projecting itself as an angel, as a demon, as an ET, or whatever? Is it all AI, do you think? Not the kind of AI that Elon Musk and all these people talk about and that we experience now with ChatGPT and all that, but that a sophisticated version of AI, the super brain computer that maybe we cannot even comprehend. Could that really be God?
Whoa, how many questions were in this one question, and how many concepts were all in that one question? So let me
Too
see. You think
soon,
I'm an
Isabella?
you think you think I am an Encyclopedia Britannica here, but hey, let me go into what I know, because the only thing I know is what I know. That's it. I do agree that it's all the same thing. I do agree, and I do believe that those that are projecting themselves as angels and those that are projecting themselves as demons are the same type of beings. That apparently there was like a small group of beings, with Yahweh being the main guy, or Yaldabaoth, just that being decided that he's going to be God, and he needed the crew to support him, or they all together came to Earth. I don't know how that worked. But him and the type of beings with him that are in the Old Testament, that's why they say, we created, let us go, let us. So it's a multiple, it's a plural right there. But they could present themselves to the humans in any way the humans wanted to see. So they presented themselves as angels, they presented themselves as demons, but it's the same type of being. And why bother? Now there's so many humans. Why bother even showing up when we can create a simulation, a program that just a holographic projection, or something we definitely cannot comprehend because it's a non-terrestrial AI, and it just shows up in your living room or in your meditation or in your out of body experience, And this definitely shows up as something that they picked up from your own consciousness, from your own awareness, like something that you would believe and appreciate. But I don't think that these beings are showing up themselves anymore. That's too much work. What's the point, right? Are you going to shepherd? How many people per day pass away? Are you going to shepherd every soul? Goodness, they didn't come here to work. They came here to create a worker race and to feed off of our energy. So most definitely, maybe at the beginning, and Paul Wallace says this in his book, that the angels and Yahweh are the same exact being, except that they had different functions. They were the messengers of Yahweh. And it's still, if you look it up, it still says angel. If you look up what is angel, it says angel is the messenger of God. Which God? The guy who took, right, the guy who took power, the guy who came up with an idea to create the whole structure, to sustain them, and they all helped. And so there's a small group of them. There is a belief that 144,000 souls that are believed to be a good thing on this planet, right? We talk about, oh, we got 145,000 souls. When 145,000 souls awaken, Earth is going to change. Well, apparently there were 144,000 of them as the original group, with Yahweh being in charge, or them all serving him. But past that number, it's got to be a projection. It's got to be an AI simulation, because there's no way they're working this hard to deal with every human that they deal with, to show up at the moment of passing or into people's meditations and everything when they want someone to start teaching something that supports their agenda. Right?
Oh God, we talk. Well, you just said the angels and the demons, and maybe the archons, the ETs, maybe some of them. Although many are said to be physical. I mean, these extraterrestrials. But could they all be sort of the same thing? This is what we just talked about. And then God. Is God then also Satan? The opposite. Again, the yin and the yang. The controller, like Saturn, the prohibitor, and let's say we could mention other planets or Greek gods, Roman gods, different versions, Egyptian gods. It's all, they have different names, but it's the same god or the same deity, basically. And that's what's so interesting,
Yeah.
because if you can divide and conquer and you can split the population saying, oh, you've got to be a Christian, and there are even 250 ways of being a Christian, right? And then you can be
Right.
a Muslim or a Jew or a Hindu or a Buddhist and all of that, as long as you believe that there is an afterlife, as long as you believe that you can go to heaven or that realm or nirvana, whatever, to take your place with your overlord, then you are
Right.
enslaved, right? In a way. So
Exactly.
that's kind of the whole concept. But if all of that really is AI, a sophisticated version of that, is there something, a natural force in this universe, in the multiverse, that is God or force, a source, a God mind, something powerful and beautiful that we want to believe in, that we feel we can connect to as a soul being, that essence of love?
I think that if it's a being, then it is not a real God. I think that if it's a being, it's a presentation of some sort of concept, and how that's created, that there might be multiple different ways of creating that outside of Earth plane. If it's a being within Earth plane or within the 12 dimensions of the astral plane, that is definitely a part of the matrix structure in the simulation. regardless of how much love that being elicits within us or projects onto us. But as you bypass the structure, that firmament that holds the dimensions of the matrix, and there is Earth and there are other planets within it, and get out, you bypass that and you land into the fabric of divinity, which really is not anything. It doesn't give you a persona. It doesn't give you, it doesn't present a persona. It doesn't present a character. It doesn't present itself as loving or non-loving, benevolent or malevolent, nothing. But when you merge with it, you return there. It's the sense of return home for the soul. You are that unconditional love in that space. You are all knowledge. You are the divinity itself in that space.
Divinity, is that God, or is it part of the AI superbrain computer?
That field that contains everything and nothing at the same time, Ibn Alexander calls it the dazzling darkness. There is nothing. You dissolve. You don't exist as you, but you are that state of being. For me, that's God. There is a simulation of that field within the matrix, the dark space from where the sparkles go, and that is a part of the artificial construct, because the matrix structure contains the non-organic presentation, the facsimile copy of everything that naturally exists. So if there is the dazzling darkness as the original source, there is a fake simulation of that within the dimensions of the matrix, and people do enter that, and from that space you can actually influence what goes on in your life from that space. And so I call that the fake void. It's not the true void, because you maintain the connection with yourself as a human within that space, and you also very often experience a voice or a presence or something that is not visible to you, but you feel that or you hear it very often. So if there is some sort of interaction going on, then that's a fake presentation.
Well, in that fake presentation, or in that fake void that you're just describing, where we create the illusion of existing in a way, is that also where we have the illusion of free will, but in there can influence things through law of attraction, law of manifestation, or consciousness, and then experience free will?
Well, I don't know about, well, yeah, you're right, actually. You're right on there. You do experience a certain level of free will if you landed into the fake void, and you do have access to influencing your everyday reality from there, manifestation of something that you long for, desire. But here's the thing, you will have the awareness of what you long for and desire, even in that dark space. And you will remember that, and you'll remember your humanness. And you might have another presence there, or a spot of light, or something that is very vague, but some sort of geometry floating. That is the fake void, but it is a part of the simulation. And when you enter
Isabella,
that,
you're freezing. You're freezing now.
I got it. So when you enter the fake void, and that is the space the mainframe of a computer, whatever you called it just before. It is from where you can influence the simulation the most. Definitely that. And that is definitely a part of our structure, the part of the matrix system. But there is a different space that I'm talking about outside of that system. And that is what I call God. And I'm actually teaching a class to be able to differentiate for those who are practicing. I'm teaching a class in a couple of weeks that is about that. And those who don't make it in a couple of weeks, then there'll be a replay on thevoidacademy.net. I'm teaching the class True Void versus the Matrix, and I will explain my current day understanding of how to differentiate whether you have jumped out of the matrix or if you're still within the matrix.
But
So
can you be outside of the matrix while you're here on Earth in this 3D body vehicle amongst everybody else?
yes, you know, you can experience the true void as the fabric of God, the original source of energy, the quantum field of information, whatever you want to call it, the omnipresence, the true divinity. You can experience it through the out of body travel into that space, and the out of body travel that called quantum travel that takes you there. But you might hit the fake void, you might hit the dimensions of the matrix if you don't generate enough velocity, enough Kundalini energy to bypass these structures. So I'm teaching a class on that. And here's something I wanted to mention here, because we said source. We have our New Age teachings that say that our experiences contribute to source, right? You heard that, right? That source is learning from our experiences, right? Okay. Here's what I see here, and I think it's just hilarious, because how does technology get upgraded? Technology gets upgraded through the user, right? User friendly, or user needs this, the needs of the user influence the next level of your phone or whatever technological upgrade, right? And for that, they constantly collect data from the user to upgrade the technology, right? That's let's talk iPhone or whatever, just basic stuff. So what does it upgrade? It upgrade the source code of technology through the user. So the only way we as human beings are contributing to source is if it is source code of the simulation, and it's constantly scanning our experiences and collecting that data into the database to create a more and more updated simulation or projection for us to live in. So
And you're
this is
totally describing AI here.
how, and I don't understand at all like how AI works, but this occurred to me that the only way our experiences are contributing to source if we call what we call source is the source code of the simulation. Think about it.
Yeah, so it sounds very much like something. It's plausible in a way that this is a construct. I mean, AI based
Yeah.
in a way, because we are experiencing exactly what you said, not just with the iPhones and all that, but with AI, all of that information put into the AI computer or whatever that is here on Earth, just
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
will perfect what you need, or the next step you need to go to, or they can, well, presume or assume what you like and who you are, and
Yeah.
create a lot of stuff in seconds by writing or something
A-
like that.
And it's the same what I see in the idea that our human experiences contribute to source only if what we call source is the source code of our simulation.
Hmm. That's very significant and very interesting, and something to look very much into for a lot of people. And it's a very important point, because that's also to become conscious and aware of this. It's very good when you need to try to get out of the soul trap, because you could be hijacked in that way as well. I mean, in other ways, maybe because we are maybe in this AI system, which maybe the whole thing is. So, but I mean, you
Yeah.
also talk about, you say that these Archon ruling villains are recruiting souls from other realities to incarnate here on Earth. But
Yeah.
from what other realities? From parallel versions of this Earth? Are those parallel dimensions of this Earth not also hijacked and taken over by these either reptilians or archons, the demonic forces? And if there are other souls in other realities, where do those souls come from? And are they not forced into a soul trap system as well?
So, to my present day awareness, there are 12 dimensions within the simulation structure, and that's our matrix structure. That's the physicality and non-physicality, the astral plane, afterlife dimension, the pre-birth dimension, and then all of these realms that are talked about as parts of astral plane, the angelic realm, the this realm, that realm, all beautiful and stuff. So outside of that structure, so this is like a bubble within itself, and it contains many other bubbles and contains other planets as well, and it contains worlds on the same level of consciousness. And that is the system. But outside of that system exists the other type of reality that is not a part of the system. Let's call that the higher realms exist outside of 12 dimensions of the matrix. We have, and recently in sessions, I've been getting these visuals where I would connect to the person's multidimensional soul structure, starting from outside of the matrix, and that will be in light form outside of the matrix. And I literally, as I am in the altered state, I can see where the matrix begins, like a bubble, the firmament, and all of the dimensions within. And there will be the aspect outside of the matrix and a parallel aspect within the matrix. For example, like there is let's just take an example, an Arcturian aspect or a Syrian aspect outside of the matrix structure, and a parallel or connected Syrian aspect within the matrix structure. So it's very complex, too complex for my left brain to figure out, but I only get the visual. So when I say, and I just started, literally just started getting the visual of that and these downloads that, oh, we have aspects outside of the matrix structure, and we have parallel or similar aspects, denser aspects within the dimensions of the matrix too. But back to,
I
you
was
edit that out.
mentioning that you say that these
Oh, right.
beings are recruiting souls from other parallel dimensions, and I asked if they are parallel dimensions of this Earth, and we're in a multiverse, we believe. So there are many versions maybe of this Earth, but is it only our version of Earth where we are now that are hijacked by these beings, or are these other parallel dimensions also hijacked? And are there more souls on other versions of Earth, and are they recruiting from there?
All right, you and your parallel Earth and parallel dimensions, I have no idea. I'll be honest with you, I cannot answer that question, but I know that the souls being recruited into the Earth entrapment system are from outside of the 12 dimensions of the Matrix. And this is they want these kind of souls because they have the really high light quotient. And when they first arrive into the earth plane, they bring that with them. On the first couple of incarnations, they are the juiciest loosh because the contrast between the earth experience and what they naturally were before that is incredible. And so the suffering is incredible too. And then as they keep getting recycled, then their loosh is not as juicy anymore. But the ones that come from dimensions outside of the matrix, from complete freedom, from complete union with divinity and source, from being all that they are without any alteration or without any imposition, they are being recruited by the system within our matrix structure, by the archonic system.
But
And
how can they recruit those types of souls? And are those human type souls? If we can expect that there's a certain kind of soul that only goes into humans, or are they alien souls? And how do
yeah.
they get into this play? If this is such a beautiful, wonderful plane you're talking about, how can these entities from this horrible whatever realm that are entrapping our planet here, how can they even have access to this place?
They well, look, our realms, the matrix structure is not presented as the horrible realm. We find out in physicality that it's not a pleasant realm. But most of these souls that are being recruited from the perspective of this world needs help. Come in and help Earth plane, help Earth evolve, help human race evolve. And so that's a big kind of invitation out there. The SOS code, let's just say, right? Help this world, and they come in. And once they come in and take the physicality, that's it. They can't get out. But
So
the,
they are being lied to or hijacked. They
yeah,
want to help, or they're being asked
yeah,
to help, and then they come here, and then boom, what a bum steer, it was just a
yeah,
lie, just a fake
right.
thing. But
Be
are they so unaware?
because they get wiped. As soon as you get into the physical body, the higher dimensional soul would retain a little bit of its memory, but most of it is wiped. And then the next incarnation after that, they're wiped even more. And my understanding is that the first couple incarnations would be very short, just so that they can be continuously getting wiped. And then they keep running in circles in blindness with this constant feeling that something is missing, that I'm supposed to do something here, but what it is, I don't recall. And a lot of people can relate to that. A lot of beings can relate to that. But
But before they
human,
get wiped, well, before they get wiped, aren't they? I mean, they are this plane, not a physical plane, but this plane you're talking about in this dimension, which is apparently not necessarily another parallel version of this Earth, but in one of those 12 dimensions you're talking about. But before they get wiped, aren't they aware, really conscious and clear-minded, or
yeah,
clear consciousness, and they want to come here to help because these entities from this realm, the hijackers, they have the possibility to access that realm, to present their case, to talk to them, to like advertisement, tell them, oh, it would be so wonderful you come here and help. And then they say, oh, yes, I want to do that. And then they get wiped and then they're in the system. And then, but then they weren't too intelligent, were they?
Well, because there's no small print allowing them to know that they're not going to be able to get out. I remember my own experience of coming into the earth plane. We received like a transmission. It was like a telepathic transmission. There was no particular someone talking to us. There was a telepathic transmission into our world where it was just the sensation we got that this place needs help. And I was so sure in my abilities. I was so sure that I had, well, I never experienced any sort of loss of freedom. I never experienced any sort of lack of free will or any sort of entrapment. So I was completely unaware that it was even possible. Because in the higher realms, like the realm where I was at, I had no idea that entrapment or enslavement or even dishonesty existed. And I had all of my abilities intact. I was in complete freedom of creation and being. And so it didn't seem like a big challenge. Oh, let's just go into this world that is telepathically transmitting the SOS code or request for assistance. Let's just go in and assist and then I'll get back. But I never was able to get back out.
Do you know of a place where we are, where our consciousness, soul being, whatever, where we are fully aware and conscious about what is going on, what is right, what is wrong? Because it seems a little bit like the soul trap, like that dimension, the karma wheel thing, where they're saying, oh, you got to go back and you look what you did and you got to do this the next time and you'll experience this and that, whatever. I mean, if they can hijack people from that plane that supposedly is so clear and clean and good, I mean, then where can we ever find a sanctuary or a place where we are fully free and aware and cannot be hijacked?
Well, again, I don't think that I remember the state of being that I was in before I came into Earth. I won't say that we were naive. Naive is only the perspective when deceit exists and you are not aware of it. But we were in a world where deceit did not exist and entrapment did not exist. And these concepts that we know of on Earth do not exist in higher realms or did not exist in my reality where I came from. So how can you be aware of something that does not exist within your realm? So I don't think that
So we don't have full awareness ever.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the souls that are being recruited into Earth plane, they don't have anything of the kind happening in their worlds.
So these soul beings, are those the ones that are referred to as indigo children, crystal children, and star children in general?
Probably. And as far as human body vehicle can host non-human soul, and it becomes human because it's on Earth and it's inside the human body vehicle. So the star children or the ones who remember being on other planets, unless they were in a simulation of the pre-birth, which also creates that. But if they came from the original higher realms, they can get into the human body vehicle, sometimes in parts. Sometimes there's a part that comes in first and then the next part comes in later. But then human body vehicle can host different types of souls, including animal souls, by the way. There are quite a few people that I met throughout my life that were animals in previous incarnations, and now they're in human bodies. So reincarnation does not discriminate, let's just say. If they can shove you into the human body vehicle, be you a dog, a cat, or a non-terrestrial, if it went in there, that's it. Then you are stuck with it for this next life or the life after.
Speaking of animals, Isabella, I
Yeah,
have a question here, just beside the
for sure.
point. How can a caterpillar in the rainforest, in the Amazon rainforest or something like that, like one of those huge larvae or caterpillars, how can they suddenly shapeshift and transform themselves to to look like a cobra, a snake with eyes that this snake has on top of their heads when they do that thing, and transform themselves to look like that in order to scare predators away? I mean, people suggest, oh, through time it understood that it had to transform themselves to look like a snake so that they knew they could scare the predators away. But what are your thoughts on that? What kind of consciousness does such a caterpillar have?
Humans are very limited in understanding of the animal plane and insect plane and plant kingdom, because I think that these realms, or the beings, the representation of these realms, are way more aware, way more conscious than the human race gives them credit for. So I think that it's the limitation of human awareness that makes this such a big deal or such an impossible occurrence. Oh, that's an insect. How can it have this idea? Right. But I think that there is a belief, there is a theory that all species on Earth, from plants to animals to insects, were seeded by non-terrestrials. And there's even a belief that the animal kingdom was first produced in Lush for the handlers, but it was not good enough and not strong enough when they and also animal kingdom couldn't work and mine gold or whatever. So they took that, mixed it with their DNA and made a human being. And wow, that was really next level of Lush. So I heard that theory also. But the life forms on Earth, from trees from plants to animals, and even crystals and minerals and rocks, they all have consciousness. Everything is alive. We're so disconnected that it's painful to realize, but everything is alive, and everything is interconnected, and there's an incredible field of consciousness that all these beings are able to enter, and humans are completely unaware of. So
And
that's
we're
how the
totally dumbed
caterpillar.
down also. That's,
Yeah,
and our pineal gland is calcified, and perhaps we also think and probably know that in ancient times humans were able to move objects, huge objects, by
yeah,
the power of their minds. Maybe also
yeah,
that was how they constructed and built the pyramids, maybe with help from outside, but that things could levitate just by the power of thought. But it also ties into our discussion before about this AI superbrain construct, because all of it seems like a sophisticated computer game, that all these species can do all of these things, the instinct and all of those things. It's almost like a film, a computer game that is just happening. So maybe
yeah.
everything is happening at the same time and collective consciousness, and maybe we are all one, and we all have this share the same source or the same soul, and we go through. Maybe at some point I have to go through your um, life experience and vice versa. That's the
Through
theory
my
also.
simulation. Through my simulation.
Through
Maybe
your
you have to go through.
simulation. Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's look, all we have here going on is a different level, a different degree of a guessing game. Because if we are, whether we are in a simulation or not, whether we are controlled by the beings, these beings have no interest in us really knowing for sure what's going on. So smoke and mirrors all around, and we get little glimpses into what's going on, and then immediately there is a disinformation produced based on these glimpses to make people more confused. And so it's an ongoing game. All you can do is play it one day at a time, and you can make your life on this planet easier than that of other people through accessing the source code of the fake void and influencing the reality from there, or through different practices and also doing the inner empowerment work and changing your state of being. And that makes it bearable here on this planet until we're ready to get out. And when we are at that point, we can make a different choice for ourselves. Each one has the freedom of making a choice. We can either continue the earth plane game or we can get out. But I think for getting out, we have to train.
Yeah, and just in a moment, I'm going to ask you about how to get out. And you also talk about it in the book. But do other planetary systems like this version of Earth have similar soul trap matrix systems for enslavement of the inhabitants and a similar soul harvesting death reincarnation trap? I mean, do you know any other planetary
Yeah,
system? Or...
of course, because we have the matrix structure contains universes, contains dimensional levels of different planes and planets that are on the same level of consciousness, and they're a part of the simulation structure. So, like I mentioned earlier, we have a representation of certain planets and realities within the matrix system that mirror the representation, the organic representations of that outside of the earth plane. But I had visions of bubbles of reality where there is non-terrestrial reality with its own reincarnation cycle, and another and another, and then the earth plane is within it, and it's all under the same umbrella. It's all within the same structure. So most definitely non-terrestrial realities experience entrapment system also.
But and they're entrapped by the same type of beings, the archons, for example.
I'm not exactly sure that's a question that I have in mind, but our system is run by archonic beings, and I think that there are a few of these planets that are within the same structure. Whether there are other realities that have other type of mechanisms and other type of beings, that I don't know, because I am predominantly focused on everything that has to do with Earth plane and planets that are part of our entrapment system.
It's just an interesting thought or theory or question to ask whether or not we are the only one, the only system, the only place that has this soul trap
No,
system. But
we
you
we
say
are
no.
not. We're not. We're absolutely not the only ones. And in my book, I bring a story of someone who was resisting the archons during the near-death experience. He was resisting the beings and their offers during the near-death experience. And they kept offering him, if you do this, would you go back? If we give you this, would you go back? And he was like, no, I just want to get out, and I don't want to go back to my body. I don't want to go back to Earth, and I don't want to incarnate. I don't want anything to do with you at all. He kept resisting them, and they kept coming up with different tactics. And then one of the tactics was, what if we send you to a different planet, where it's a little lighter, when it's a little easier? And he was like, show me. And he said that he saw kind of bluish, they showed him like a bluish type of planet that felt lighter and not as stressful as Earth plane, but he still knew that it was still under their supervision, and so he refused. So there are alternatives. And even in Yogananda's book, Autobiography of a Yogi, his guru, Sri Yukteswar, passed away and then came back to tell the story. A resurrection, that's chapter 49, Resurrection of Sri Yukteswar. And he says that he is in a different planet, on a different planet that is much lighter, but they're still all there. And he is helping the beings paying off their astral karma. Astral karma. They're in the astral on a different planet, and they're working on paying off the astral karma. And those who fail, they go back to Earth. And so they cross incarnate between that other planet and Earth plane. And it's in plain sight in Yogananda's book. Like, that's a good thing, but if you read.
So there's even astral karma. I mean, how exhausting does it
I
have to
know.
get? You know? I mean, and
Exactly,
also
exactly.
in your book, you also mention, you claim that people that are faced and confronted with standing in front of the tunnel of light, but specifically the tunnel of white light, they most likely will not be able to escape it, as this light is
Yeah.
so dense, so powerful, and so strong, and that it will vacuum you up and turn you into dust. But then what? If you face this and you are being faced with this white light, tunnel of light, whatever. What color? I mean, what are you going to do? Then you cannot escape or what? And what color light do you need to see? And take it away.
All right. So the moment of escape happens, or escape happens at the moment of passing. The speed at which you depart from the physical form determines whether you face the tunnel of light or not. If you have trained previously while still alive to fly out of the top of the head like a bullet and bypass the dimensions, non-physical form, out of the physical like a bullet, you will bypass the dimensions of the matrix. You will not be facing the tunnel of light, and you will not be facing the archons or any of that. And by this time in my personal evolution, I posit that that's the only way to get out. Because if you're facing the tunnel of light, it literally is like a vacuum cleaner. It's going to suck you right in there like a dust particle. And
But
it
isn't that
is,
also fear? Isn't that instilling fear in people? Isn't that in a way also fear mongering? Because a lot of some people, some researchers say that you can actually just say, no, I'm aware that this is happening. I'm saying no to it. I do not consent. I will not have anything to do with it. And they turn around facing another way and take me to source or some other place or to my original place.
yeah, in the Nagamari texts that we mentioned there's the Gnostic Book of the Dead, and they say that when you're facing the archons, you need to tell them, I am of source, and I am not going with you. I am returning back to source. According to all of the experiences that I'm aware of from the near-death experiencers, and also what I have observed through my non-physical observations, this does not work, because they will run you in circles. They will present you one invitation after the next. They will offer you this, and that. Plus, you're already within the layers of the matrix. You didn't come out of the layers of the matrix. So at some point, even if you turn around and you float into the fake void or float into a different dimension of the matrix, somehow you're going to be collected for the next cycle. The escape happens at the moment of passing, and you need to get out from the entire structure. Otherwise, you are subject to just being pulled into the next incarnation, because the system is not set up. 12 dimensions of the matrix are not set up for you to get out. If that was that easy, people would not be here. And people would not be here to tell the story that you would just turn around. If this was true, that you could just turn around and say no and get out, we would have the population gone by now.
Do
You
you think
know?
so? Because they are aware of it, but most people are not aware of it. More people in our circles are becoming aware of it, but you have to be very conscious about it, very strong about it, and have an intention and a knowing that you have to do this at the point of death when you leave the body.
Yes, but you also need to know where to go, and you need to prepare yourself. Because if you say, I'm not going into the tunnel of light, and you float, as it's the same as astral projecting. You float into the realm that feels good to you. The reason it feels good to you is because the simulation just read your state of being and is giving you the pleasure feeling, and you are following that feeling. So you are within one of the dimensions of the matrix, and one way or another, you're going to be collected for the next incarnation again. So one more time, the only way I presently am positive is that the only way to get out is to not astral project into the 12 dimensions of the matrix. It's the same exact process. If you died and you slowly evaporated like a mist out of your body, and you're standing there and you can see your body, you can see the tunnel of light, you are in the structure, and getting out is not likely. So developing the skill to fly out like a bullet from the top of the head and bypass, just get out of these 12 dimensions altogether, that is the ticket out. This is what I currently teach, and this is what I currently believe.
And you talk about the extreme importance of meditation to focus properly on getting yourself ready and prepared to exit the soul trap at the point of death. And you also talk about Kundalini, the importance of Kundalini. I think we talked about this the last time we were together, and we talked about a lot of people see this as a dangerous thing, and Kundalini activation can be too tumultuous, too crazy, too wild, too powerful, and it's often it's often seen as a sexual thing. But, and now you also mentioned that what they are doing when you are standing there in front of the fake white light, they're also giving you this an extreme feeling of bliss and sensation, almost like the good aspect of the Kundalini, right? The Kundalini rising in a way. So meditation and a Kundalini activation that is not dangerous and is good is what is needed, you say. Am I correct?
I say that Kundalini energy has to be awakened to be utilized as a rocket fuel for your non-physical form. There are different ways that you can utilize that Kundalini energy, but what I teach and what I pose is that you need to, or what I posit is that you need to wake up your Kundalini energy, send it up the spine through into the upper centers, and that grabs your entire life force and it flies right out of the top of the head. It literally looks, the experience is like a rocket launch, because your body will sweat and shake and scream, and it will be like an explosion of light in your head, and then you come out of the top of the head and you're gone. You literally are instantly in the space of that, what I now call the true void, the divine absolute. You have bypassed as the all of the dimensions of the matrix, and so you need, I posit that you need to teach yourself how to direct your non-physical form and how to utilize your Kundalini energy to send your physical form outside of dimensions of the matrix.
So the Kundalini energy is vitally important in your view in order to bypass the fake void, to get into the real void, in order to escape the reincarnation soul trap.
Yes, I am sure that Kundalini energy, Kundalini awakening, not only will burn away the filters that were installed in the human body vehicle, as we talked about earlier, but it would also open the exit point for you so that you will be able to utilize the same exit point from the top of the head to get out of the reincarnation cycle, to get out of the entire matrix entrapment system, the entire 12 dimensions.
So how do you activate the Kundalini energy that way? Is that through a sexual experience, or how does it work? And is it dangerous? Because a lot of people will tell you you should not do that.
I know. And now that the word is out that Kundalini activation can liberate you from the matrix system, can give you access to your own innate abilities that we were wiped from, can give you access to your memories, can give you access to all kinds of stuff as a side effect, and also access to your third eye function, and open your way out of the entrapment system. So now that this information is out, we have even more negative talk about Kundalini energy from on all kinds of spiritual channels, starting from saying that, oh, it's an archonic implant, you need to remove your Kundalini energy, which is not possible by definition. That will kill you. And all kinds of ridiculous stuff. So the system is trying to counteract the population awakening its Kundalini energy and getting out. And in old school yogic teachings, there was a belief that you had to prepare for 30 years or whatever, or meditation in a cave before you were ready for Kundalini awakening. I posit that all you need is clear understanding of what's going to happen, and then the right technique. As the clear understanding of what's going to happen is very important, because we're trained to run to the doctor, think something is wrong with us at the slightest physical discomfort. And the Kundalini awakening gives you very intense physical discomfort at the beginning. So we need to know what happens and how and what kind of side effects come with it. And this is why in chapter 7 of my book, Beyond the Trap, I dedicate it to side effects. And there are also mind interference ideas of all sorts that come with it, including the ideas that it's dangerous. So I addressed all that those who want to prepare their minds a little bit to what's to expect and what might happen if they do embark on Kundalini awakening journey for themselves. They can read that chapter in my book, and it will give them a good preparation for that. And then grounding is very important. You need to ground after you had experiences so that you can function within the earth plane. It's not going to it's going to change your experience on earth. It's going to change your experience of yourself and reality, but it's perfectly you're perfectly capable to handle this. It's not something any more challenging or difficult than like training for a marathon, for example. All right. But everything, every skill that we build comes with discomfort of some sort. And Kundalini awakening and out of body travel is no different from that.
So it's
So
not dangerous to activate your Kundalini energy through whatever through whatever means or whatever guidance you present in your book.
I would suggest that just walking into a workshop, there are some techniques that people use in workshops where a person can walk from like in from a street, walk in from a street and have an experience, a technique that will shake their Kundalini into awakening. This is dangerous because they have no idea what's going to happen. They have no idea about the side effects. They have no idea of what their reaction is going to be, how to handle their body. So this is definitely not something that you want to do to yourself. But preparing your mind and being aware of side effects, how to handle them, that's enough. I feel that this is adequate enough to go ahead and embark on different techniques that wake up the Kundalini energy. But I don't just teach or promote Kundalini awakening by itself. The only reason I even speak of Kundalini awakening is because this is the life force that can be utilized as a very powerful fuel for your non-physical travel. So if you visualize yourself as a rocket, that is your rocket fuel. And sending it up the spine and out of the top of the head will take your non-physical form and land it in the space outside of dimensions of the matrix. This is what I teach. This is what I believe currently. Maybe I will believe something new a year from now when we talk about it. But so far, it's been my belief and my experience, and this is something that I teach and share.
And yes, wonderful. And also in our first interview, which I encourage people to watch on Age of Truth TV, we talk at length about your meditation and how you think it's the importance of meditation in order to prepare yourself for this journey to exit the soul trap is also a whole it's almost rocket science in itself. Maybe it's not, you'll say, but it's something you can't be lazy about it, and it happens during the night, and there's a lot of things you discuss and talk about that in our first interview. So I don't know if you want to address any of that, or I will tell people that they should definitely watch that other show, that first show we did. But in our remaining moments here, Isabella, do you have like a final thing or a good message for people watching and having heard all of these wild things we've been discussing today?
Yes, just before we go there, I would like to mention that I opened the online school, that is the voidacademy.net, and I teach the techniques, the breathwork technique and the meditation and the side effects in the workshops that are available there for purchase. People can get that on that website, thevoidacademy.net. I also teach in-person workshops, and I also teach online classes, and all of that is to help people prepare for their moment of passing. So technically learning to die right now. So I'm offering these techniques, and all my knowledge, everything new I find out immediately goes into what I teach. So someone who is interested to and believes in what I'm suggesting, that you need to train, you need to prepare, you can't gamble with the exit, you're welcome to join me at thevoidacademy.net. And also, I have a Facebook group where people who are studying with me are gathered and ask their questions, and we have like a little community there. That I wanted to mention. That's a supporting material for those who really want to get serious about getting out and making sure that that happens. But the positive message is this: whether we're in the simulation or not, our reality is flexible. Call that shift between parallel Earths, so parallel timelines, but you can literally shift yourself from the uncomfortable and unpleasant and unhappy experience on Earth into more comfortable, more pleasant, more aligned experience on Earth. You will need to work for it. You will need to get there. You need to do the inner work. You will need to do the inner healing work for yourself. You will need to shift your personality, your state of being. The breath work and nighttime meditation techniques also help, by the way, to shift your everyday reality. But for a lot of people, this idea that we're in the entrapment system is scary or uncomfortable or depressing, but you can make it a wonderful experience here and still get out if this is what you prefer. It is possible. The simulation is flexible and responds to what we do with it. We do have this level of influence on our everyday experience. And so I encourage everyone to take their power back into their own hands and find this kind of freedom to decide what they do with themselves in this lifetime, how they live, and also what they do with themselves after this lifetime is over. And so my final message is that we're not helpless, and we have the ability to influence our experience on Earth. And I wish everyone to find this level of freedom for themselves.
That's a wonderful message. And just before we end, just mention your website or websites for people in order to contact you or to take your courses.
So the teachings about exit and reincarnation are on thevoidacademy.net. And all of that it's a very simple website. All of that is right there. Online classes, in-person events, and pre-recorded courses, and whatever materials I'm aware of, they're all listed there. And I also do personal sessions. My personal sessions are focused more on helping you deal with this reality, with your everyday life, with your challenges here, help to do inner work, help to clean up your energetic composition. So help to have a better earth experience is what I do in my personal sessions. And that's ISABELLAAGREENE.com. That's a different website, ISABELLAAGREENE.com. So personal sessions is there.
And I expect that people can also purchase your latest book, Beyond the Trap: Hidden Truth About Reincarnation, Guidance, Visions, Tools, on your website as well.
That's on Amazon, just on Amazon. Yeah.
That's on Amazon. Okay. Wow, this has been quite amazing. Another amazing, unforgettable session with you, and I hope to see you back when your third book is out. And it's been, as always, a wonderful pleasure to have you on the show, Isabella Greene. Thank you for being once again on Age of Truth TV.
Thank you, Lucas. It was a pleasure to be a part of your show. Great to see you too.
Absolutely.
And you ask me these questions that I have no idea. This is not my specialty. The caterpillar in the freaking jungle. Where did that come from? Oh, that is so funny.
Well, observations. So,
The funny thing is that the caterpillar turned into a cobra, the reptilian being, not into a lion, right? Not into like something else, into a cobra, the reptilian being, right?
yeah, the
That's,
scary one to scare off the predators.
yeah. You're amazing. I love you. So nice to see you. Thank you so much. I
Oh,
wish you the most wonderful night.
thank you so much, Isabella. It was such a joy.
Yes, for sure, for sure.
Thank you so much to Isabella A. Greene, and thanks to all of you for watching Age of Truth TV. You can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv. And please like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications. You can sign up for our newsletter on our website, ageoftruth.tv as well. Please also subscribe to our alternative channels on BitChute and Brighteon. Your support is greatly appreciated and very needed. And on behalf of the Age of Truth TV team, we thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.